This is the plaintiff, Mark Brown. He says he rented a condo for a week on the island of St. Martin, and as it turned out, that was the week Hurricane Irma hit. The resort where the condo was located was shut down due to the storm, and when he asked for his money back, the defendant told him he would only refund half. Half? The condo was uninhabitable. There was no way anyone could stay there, and he's owed a full refund in the amount of $800. Just what he's suing for. This is the defendant, Earl Capel. He says he always tells renters to get insurance for things like hurricanes, which the plaintiff has done in the past, because he's rented from them before. This time, for whatever reason, the plaintiff opted not to get the insurance. A hurricane hit, and now he wants a full refund from him? No way. He's not entitled to a refund. He's accused of creating a financial disaster. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $432 for monies he had to pay the resort.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket, the plaintiff rented a condo in St. Martin, put down a deposit, but Hurricane Irma hit. The resort was a wreck, and he couldn't go, and he wants his deposit back. The defendant says he should have gotten renter's insurance. It's the case of rock me like a hurricane.
Thank you, sir. Mark Brown, you are suing Earl and Carol Capel for $800, a deposit that you put in a timeshare rental that you want returned to you. You are counterclaiming against him some extra money you put towards the resort in order for him to be able to rent a bigger unit.
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever stayed in that, have you ever rented his timeshare before?
Yes.
Okay, his timeshare right before? All right, and when you did that, you own a timeshare and you rent out. Do you rent it out every year?
It depends on the timeshare and who the guest comes in to get the information for.
How often do you end up renting it out?
The divvy timeshares usually once, maybe two per year.
Okay. Do you own several timeshares?
Yes.
How many?
We're timeshare junkies. We own about 6.
6 of them. All right. So sometimes you use them, sometimes you rent them out.
We always use them, and our contracts allow us to use time that's excess that we can purchase.
And rent it out. Right. All right. So you were where is this particular one located?
This one is at Divvy Little Bay Resort on the island of St. Martin.
The Caribbean?
Yes, that's where.
And you've rented that one before?
I've rented that.
And how much were you paying for it?
$1,600 a week.
Something funny happened on the way to the forum, and Hurricane Irma hit.
Correct.
And that was the week. You were going to be there when?
A few months later, the island was devastated
Yeah.
and basically unusable. The resort was closed at that time.
Has the resort ever reopened?
Yes, it reopened afterwards.
Okay. So he wants his deposit back because the place was closed and he couldn't go. And why aren't you returning his deposit?
The Marks rented in 2015 a week from us from a different resort on the same island, and it was through the same terms. That is to say that we're not a company. We dispose of personal available time, and we do not offer cancellation insurance or interruption insurance, and we ask all guests to get the same to protect themselves because we don't offer any protection.
Okay. Can I see any written paperwork between you two? Any emails, anything like that? A contract? Is there a contract that got signed or no?
No, it's
just an email?
The deposit we made, the dates, and the confirmation from the resort.
Okay. Do you have a written agreement with him?
With Brown? No.
Well, yeah, the guy who's suing you. Do you have a written agreement with him where I can see that he acknowledged that you said that it's his requirement to get insurance?
So if a hurricane hits on an island where you rented a condo, can you get your deposit back?
I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think so unless you've got some kind of insurance, especially for that.
Say you don't. What do you say?
No, you don't get your money back. It's not the individual's fault that's renting you the property that a hurricane
That's
hit.
true. Anybody got a different opinion? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Nobody? I can't believe nobody's saying this. Nobody has any idea? Higher force, whatever? Okay, going inside the courtroom.
I've looked through the only paperwork anybody's giving me here, and nowhere here does it say the following: you assume the risk of an act of God. I would never rent a place that had me assume the risk of an act of God. If you had in a contract with him, listen, you assume the risk of an act of God, I can understand how you're saying, hey, buddy, I'm out the money. I'm not a company. I'm a person, and I spent your money, and I don't want to have to pay it to you. No, but the deal is he's renting a place he can go to, and he can't go to it anymore. And you're assuming that's a him problem, and I'm looking at it as a you problem, because you could really think you need to raise your hand? Because I don't see how that means that he has to take a vacation at a different time. I realize you're trying to find a solution. And really, it's kind of funny because you have the ability to find a solution. You have the ability to rent it out at another time because the timeshare is allowing you to rent that time that you didn't have and that you have a right to. You understand what having a right to a place means, and you are having them provide you with a subsequent time that you can go ahead and rent out or use. So you're not really out. The guy who's out is him. And he's out how much? What was the deposit?
$800.
Right. So tell me where I'm not getting this.
The money that we had to pay to the resort for the upgrade for the Brown family was a one-time specific date reservation.
So
And
if the resort couldn't give it to you, then the resort will give it to you at a different time. That one-time upgrade ability. So you are now able to rent out a one-bedroom instead of a studio, right?
Actually, not the one bedroom, only the studio. The money that we had to put out for
well, then I suggest you go sue the resort, because they can't, just like you can't, they can't. They can't have an act of God unless, of course, you waive the right to do that by some contract you have for your timeshare. I don't know. That's another problem for another judge on a different day. I just have this. Okay? There's a way to protect yourself. If you want to insist that they buy insurance, then you say it. But say to somebody, hey, if you'd had insurance, I wouldn't have to pay you because you would have gotten it from the insurance. That's not a defense. Okay? That's not a defense. Not everyone buys travel insurance, and not every travel insurance covers every one of these situations. So no, the question is, who bears the act of God responsibility? You can negotiate that away in a contract. I've rented places for a week where it said if there's an act of God, 20% of the deposit is kept. And I don't have a problem with that because I don't think there's going to be an act of God probably. And I know they're going through, but you did nothing. You're just saying now after the fact, I don't want to pay you. So an act of God is your problem. No. And you don't get the money that you paid to the resort back because I believe that you will have a right to rent a one bedroom, which is why you paid that money. And if not, take that up with the resort. My verdict is for the plaintiff in this case for $800. The counterclaim, $0. That's my judgment.
So the judge finds for the plaintiff he is going to get his $800 back from you, Mr. Capel. You don't seem like you feel at all sorry for him, do you?
Actually, I do not, because there were several phone conversations that were not taken into the court between Brown and Capel.
What do you mean taken into court? You mean consideration?
For consideration.
Well, you didn't bring them up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. But I mean, he gave you money for an apartment and he got nothing for it, and you want to keep it. That's not fair. I don't think you understand. I don't know.
I understand.
All right, well, good enough. You seem like you don't. Or care, either way. Mr. Brown, are you going to rent from him again?
No. I've rented from him previously.
Yeah, you said that.
I never had a problem. And all of a sudden, he comes up with this cockamamie thing that he paid an upgrade. So I've rented before. Nothing was ever mentioned insurance or anything else.
Yeah, I know. Well, good.
I do carry travel insurance whenever I travel.
That's different.
But that doesn't cover an act of God.
Exactly right. All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised you're not going to rent from him again.
Yes, thank you.
Good for you. Okay. Smart decision. Harvey?
So there are two things going on here. One is called act of God, okay, where an act of God can undo a contract, but the real purpose of that is that when the point of a contract gets completely frustrated so it can't be carried out, in this case, you can't really rent the place because it's destroyed, you put the parties back in the position they were in before they made the contract, which means in this case, guy gets his deposit back.